Some pretty devastating news for Republicans. New reporting indicates that state Republican parties across the country are running low on cash because Trump's election lies are so toxic that it's causing many wealthy Republican donors to stop bankrolling the party. According to Reuters, major Republican donors to the Arizona and Michigan Republican parties, who have each donated tens of thousands of dollars to the parties over the last 6 years, have ceased supplying funding because of Republican leaders' attempts to overturn 2020 election results, their support of losing candidates who tout Trump's election conspiracy theories, and what they consider extreme views on issues like abortion, 6 benefactors told Reuters. I question whether the state party has the necessary expertise to spend the money well. Real estate mogul Ron Weiser, one of the Michigan party's biggest donors and former chair of the party, told the outlet. In other words, Trump is such a liability that he's turning off even his own party's donors, who recognize that his insanity is causing them to lose elections. The article goes on to explain how state Republicans are misusing the money that they do receive as well, which is causing concern among donors. Quote, last year, the Arizona GOP spent more than $300,000 on unspecified legal consulting fees and more than $500,000 on an election night party and bus tour for statewide Trump-endorsed candidates, all of whom lost in November's midterms, according to the party's federal financial filings. Separate campaign and legal disclosures show money was also paid to lawyers who represented the former Arizona party chair Kelly Ward when the Justice Department subpoenaed her over her involvement in a scheme to falsely certify to Congress that Trump had won the election, and when a congressional committee subpoenaed her phone records. Wow, yeah, I can't believe that the party that worships at the altar of the biggest grifter on the face of the earth would misuse their donors' funds. Truly shocking. Let's be honest here, the only surprising thing about this is that it's taken wealthy Republican donors this long to realize that their party is, at its core, a scam. That the whole point of the GOP is to make empty gestures and do performative theatrics, all for the express purpose of raising money, so that they can then stay in office and then do more empty gestures and performative theatrics and then raise more money and on and on. It is the facade of a political party built on lies, all in service of raising money and spending cash on themselves. And the people getting screwed are the rubes getting bilked for cash on a daily basis. But here's the truth of it. Republican donors aren't mad at Trump based on some long-held principles regarding democracy or decency or anything like that. They're just mad that Trump's insanity is turning off just enough actual voters who do care about democracy and decency that it's causing Republicans to lose, thereby causing these donors to waste the money that they're investing. These rich donors aren't stupid. They know exactly what they're buying. The business model of the Republican Party is to scapegoat minorities and other disadvantaged groups of people in order to benefit the rich and rob the working and middle class. And so they'll demagogue about immigration and wokeness as long as it can scare just enough people to get Republicans elected so that those same Republicans can then turn around and pass tax cuts for their wealthy donors when they're in office. So these donors who are now beginning to withhold their money, they had no problem when Trump was using that playbook in 2016 and 2017, but they can't stand that Trump is so unhinged, so stupid, so reckless that he is causing Republicans to lose now when they think they should be winning. But the reality is that even in 2022, Democrats had an unexpectedly impressive performance and there was no red wave, even though historically that's what you would expect during a midterm year. And it's largely because the Republican brand is so toxic because they keep nominating far-right MAGA candidates and appointing Supreme Court justices who are taking away people's rights. You think that people on the right would begin to understand that, and yet here we are. Consider, too, it's also pretty tough to frame Democrats as some evil, woke cabal being controlled by Hillary Clinton and George Soros and the ghost of Hugo Chavez, because Democrats actually got decent things done for Americans. They passed a historic infrastructure bill whose effects will be felt for generations to come. They recovered the economy with the American Rescue Plan. They passed the CHIPS Act, which has led to a historic boom in American manufacturing and will reduce the U.S.'s supply chain reliance on China. They oversaw the fastest job growth in history and record low unemployment. They passed the biggest climate investment in history and allowed Medicare to negotiate lower drug prices. They reauthorized the Violence Against Women Act. They passed the first gun safety legislation in decades. They passed the PACT Act for veterans health care despite Republican opposition. They oversaw the largest reduction in the deficit in history. They codified marriage equality for same-sex and interracial couples into federal law to help protect it against this far-right Supreme Court majority. It was just bill after bill of common sense, good policy for America. And a lot more could be done if Republicans weren't standing in the way and the filibuster was finally abolished. So yeah, I think we're at the point now where the contrast is so clear and Republicans have gone so far off the deep end that it's causing a lot of people to wake up to what their agenda actually is. Republicans can claim fiscal responsibility, but when every Republican administration in my lifetime has produced fewer jobs and more recessions than every Democratic administration, I think the truth is finally becoming clear. The fact is that what these Republican donors need to understand is that Trump is the Frankenstein's monster that they've created. They let him get this far, and now there's no turning back. Their party is firmly under MAGA control. And that's why you see situations like this one, where MAGA voters are so detached from reality that it even makes Mike Pence look sane when he has to correct them on basic civics.
We all know by the number of votes that were there who won that election.
Well, let me speak to that issue.
History for this country.
Yeah, let me speak to the issue, because I think it's an issue that continues to be misunderstood. But I know by God's grace I did exactly what the Constitution of the United States required of me that day. And I kept my oath. But let me be very respectful of the question and tell you, look, states conduct our elections. You never want to let Washington, D.C. run elections. And you certainly would never want one person in Washington, D.C. to decide who the President of the United States is going to be.
You were just sending it back to the states.
Ma'am, let me explain it to you. States conduct elections. Iowa, where I live in Indiana. And after there were questions in a half a dozen or so states, we had reviews of the results, 60 different lawsuits that went to the courts. Where there are questions, there's two ways that they're reviewed. Number one is you take those issues to the legal process in the state for recounts, okay? Secondly, you take them to the courts, which we did very aggressively. Now, there were voting irregularities that took place. You had a half a dozen states that changed the rules in the name of COVID, but the courts upheld those changes in virtually every instance, and in every instance where they would have had any impact whatsoever. At the end of the day, when Iowa certified your results and sent them to Washington, D.C., when Indiana certified our results, the Constitution of the United States in Article 2 says the job of the Vice President is to serve as the presiding officer of a joint session where you open and count the votes. Don't take my word for it. Go read the Constitution.
Yeah, when you make Mike Pence, the guy who supported gay conversion therapy and thinks that rich people pay too much in taxes, look quasi-sane, you know your party is really far down the rabbit hole. So my message for Republican donors is this: if you keep supporting this joke of a party, your investments are going to have about as much of an ROI as Trump's steaks. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.